Welcome to this extra video this week because it's that time of year where you're probably thinking if you're going to do some DIY presents, you're probably going to start making them now because they do take a little bit more time. So I was going through the archives and I thought I'd pull together a compilation video with a couple of ideas if you do want to do some DIY presents this year. Now, there's no sewing ones in this video. If you do want some sewing ideas, I'll link to 2 videos, both with 10 sewing projects, and I'll put them in the description box. If it's your first time to stumble across my channel, welcome! Please do hit the subscribe button if you like what you see, and welcome to the community. Let's make some teacup bird feeders. I'm going to pop on screen some of the items that you're going to need. We are going to be drilling China for this because it's more secure. I have made these in the past with glue and it does work, but if you want to make them a bit more long lasting, I recommend having a shot at drilling. And I know this is such a delicate looking plate and we're going to stick a hole in it, but it's actually easier to do than you think. So you need to have a tile cutting drill bit. The width of your drill bit will depend on the nut and bolt that you're using. So I'm using an 8mm bit and I have a nut and bolt that diameter and length to go into my teacup and saucer. So whatever size drill bit you use, it will just have to match the nut and bolt that you're going to use. You'll see that I'm dipping the tip of the drill bit into a bowl of water, and this is just to keep it cool. A lot of the times when you are drilling through tile and it cracks, the drill bit can be overheating. So to keep it cool, that's what I'm doing. I also just have a scrap piece of wood underneath just so I don't drill into my kitchen table. I don't need that. Drilling through china, it obviously takes a little bit longer than drilling through wood, so allow yourself some extra time. Also, I'm confident enough holding onto the cup and the plate, but if it's your first time, you could maybe use a clamp, but do make sure you hang on to the plate because as it gets to the end, it can tend to spin. So just a little tip. You can also use some safety gloves as well if you're afraid of, it spinning off. But just take care when doing this. You can also ask someone to do it for you and you can get some help if you're not feeling too confident. As you can see, I have some of them that have a chain. I ran out of chain, and actually the chain that I have on the other ones is quite thick, because that's all they had in the hardware shop. I would like something a little thinner and a bit prettier, but hey ho, that's all I have. So for this, I'm using wire. You can use rope. I have used rope in the past with glue, but I find the wire is a bit more long lasting. Now, just for this video, I'm popping them here as a display, but generally I keep teacup bird feeders hanging off a tree in my garden that's sheltered, and just make sure every time you go to refill your teacup bird feeders, you just rinse them out, because that can be a common complaint is you can actually make your birdies sick if you have dirty bird feeders. And I also popped water into one of them as well. Let's take a plank of wood and make a bird box. Making the bird box is a great kind of beginner woodwork project. I am going to be copying an old bird box and I'm going to use the dimensions from the old box. Here it is. My neighbour gave this to me. Now I am going to give this a lick of paint and bring it back to life. However, let's make a new one and use this as a template. Don't worry if you don't have a bird box as a template, because I'm going to leave the measurements for my bird box in the description, so you can click that and check out and use those measurements to make your bird box. If you are using something as a template to copy, just measure it all out, take a note of the measurements on a piece of paper and then transfer them measurements to your wood before you cut them out. To cut your wood, I'm just using a saw because I have it and it's way much easier. However, you can use a jigsaw, you can use a hand saw, but you will be sweating. It's a little bit more strenuous. Do not worry if your wooden pieces are not perfectly straight, because you can probably tell from mine that mine are not straight. But hey ho, here we are. I'm going to be cutting a hole in the front of mine that is 32 millimeters because that's what was on mine, but you can also do a 25 millimeter, 28 millimeter, and I think a 45 millimeter is for starlings, so you can do your research on that. But I'm going to be using a 32 millimeter drill bit, and I'm going to sand all of the wood and sharp edges as well, so that's nice and smooth for the birdies to fly in and out. When it comes to assembling your wood, and if you are by yourself like I am, highly recommend using a clamp. It just makes everything easier. I'm using screws for this, and I'm drilling a pilot hole into the wood before I add the screw, because this stops the wood from splitting. So if you were to just lash in a screw in straight away, your wood has a tendency to split. I didn't use wood glue because I was trying to use as little chemicals as I could when it came to using the bird box. And you'll also notice that I'm using like a soft wood. I didn't use treated timber because I read somewhere that it's not actually good for the birds. I don't know, how true that is. Obviously, if you have scrap wood, use up your scrap wood. I'm not sure if the birdies will be too fussy. I did read somewhere that treated timber might not be good to use. So I'm using a soft wood, and I am going to paint the outside with an exterior wood stain. But as you can see, I've used nice thick wood, so I'm hoping that that paint stain will only penetrate like the top layer of wood, and I won't be painting the inside. So if you're wondering why I have hinges on this and a door and a little latch, it's because it's great to be able to take apart your bird's nest if you do need to clean it out or check for pests, insects, mites. So by having the top lid hinged and then adding this like a hook and eye, I'm calling it a hook and eye, but I think that's a sewing term, but a hook and eye latch I think it might be called, to obviously keep it closed. I have one on one side. You could possibly add another one to the second side, but I found this secure. I had a tester pot in my kit of this outdoor, it's like a stain, it's kind of like a paint, but I think it's actually a stain. It's those coloured garden paints that you pick up in your DIY shop, and I just applied one coat because I didn't want to be using too much, and that's just to seal the outside because I do want it to last in the elements, and then I'll put a bit of birdie bling on it. So when it comes to placing your birdhouse, some tips is to make sure that it's like not obstructed by things and they have a clear pathway. Keep it away from like predators, and then don't have it in direct sun. So I think morning sun was okay, but don't have it in like direct sun. So I've popped it on my wall here just for this video, but I think I will reposition it so that it is away from Blondie. The most important thing for this DIY is your drill and your drill bit. You are going to need some extra things, but the drill bit is the most important. I'm using an 8mm tile and glass drill bit. Make sure you have the correct settings on your drill and the right speed, and then you can get ready to drill. When I was researching how to actually drill through porcelain, a lot of people taped the center or taped where they were going to drill. So I'm just adding on some tape. I think it helps it to prevent it from cracking. I then just measured out and found the center, and I just popped a dot to use as my guide before I drilled. I just popped a piece of scrap wood underneath the plate just to stop me from drilling through and drilling a hole in my office table. I have a mini bucket of water because this is to cool down the tip of my drill and also the plate. When you are drilling ceramic and tile and glass, it gets really hot. If it gets too hot, you can crack your piece. So take your time when drilling this. This isn't something you're going to drill super quick. This plate that I used today was actually quite thick, so it took me a bit longer. I had tested this out on a broken piece of china and it was quicker. It took me roughly 3-4 minutes to actually get a hole in this. Just be careful at the end, because when you actually get it through, it can spin off like it did here. So just be extra careful, and then you can peel off your tape and give it a quick clean. Drilling china can make quite a racket, so Blondie had to come in and investigate and see what I was getting up to. It would not be a DIY video if it wasn't for a cameo from Blondie. I picked up this clock kit from Amazon. I think it was about €15. I'll link to it below. It has instructions on the back, so I just simply followed the instructions. Depending on the clock kit that you buy, it's going to have its own instructions. So it was really easy to assemble. Just make sure that you don't lose any parts, because I actually assembled mine and I had a washer going spare, so I had to reassemble it. Once you are happy and you've adjusted to the time, you can pop your battery back in and you have just made yourself a clock. Here is the finished clock. To make some wax melts. These are so easy to make and you can make loads from one batch. I'm going to be using beeswax and I'm going to be using coconut oil, and then I have some essential oils and I have a cute pumpkin mold. Of course I do. We had to go all out because it's autumn now. I'm making a double boiler. So I just have a pot simmering with water and I placed a bowl on top, and I placed in 50 grams of beeswax and I'm placing 100 grams of coconut oil, and I'm going to let that melt, and I'm simply going to stir in the essential oils. I'll pop on a little card here with the details of the essential oils and how many drops, and you'll see when I'm pouring this into the molds that I made quite big molds, but if I popped half into the molds, I would have been able to get more, but you can just increase the quantities that I have used or decrease depending on the mold that you have. But to be honest, the more wax melts, the better. These smell delicious, and they also make great presents, and once they just set, they actually set really quickly. So once they set, you can just pop them out and then you can just give them to your friends. Store them in like a cool dark area because you don't want to leave them out to melt. But I found that these they dried super quick, and the reason why you add coconut oil to the beeswax is because it makes them easier to melt. If you don't add coconut oil to the beeswax, it's going to take longer for them to melt. Room sprays are so easy to make. You may remember me making a sleep spray in lockdown. Well, I used it all up and I'm recycling the glass bottle again, and I'm making a fresh batch. For this, I just pop in some distilled water I then pop in some witch hazel. If you don't have witch hazel, you can use vodka, and this just helps the oils to mix in with the water. If you don't use this, they're not going to mix. I will pop a card on here as well that gives you the measurements that I used, but you can use as little or you can add more depending on how strong you like your scent. Always remember to give it a good shake before you use it because you want the oils to mix, and then spray away. We are going to make our very own pillow spray. I'm actually going to be recycling an old bottle of pillow spray that I had used it up, but the bottle is a lovely dark glass bottle and it is perfect for this DIY. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean out any residue and take off the label. You can use some rubbing alcohol on any of this sticky residue and that really helps to remove it. Using a funnel, I am just filling it up with water. As you can see, I had a little spill. It's really important that you use either witch hazel or alcohol in this mixture, or else the essential oils won't mix with the water. So I am adding a tablespoon of witch hazel to my mixture before I add the essential oils. And also just make sure you give your bottle a good shake before you use it, and that helps the essential oils mix with the water and witch hazel. I'm just popping in my essential oils. The one thing I will say from making this recipe is go easy on the cedar wood, as that is quite of a strong woody scent, and if you're not into that and you want it to be more lavender, you can maybe leave that out and add more lavender, and all just depends on your personal preference. But this is a lovely mixture and a nice alternative to expensive pillow sprays. So if you're looking for some more ideas, I'll pop some stuff in the description and maybe some M cards, because I do have some other compilation videos with projects if you're just looking for inspiration ideas. And like I said at the beginning, if you're looking for some sewing videos, I will link to those 2 ones that have 10 projects in each. So that's 20 sewing projects for you. If you're not making any presents just yet, just bookmark this video, save it, or share it amongst your community. Sharing is caring, and it definitely helps my channel, so I really do appreciate that. So does Blondie. Did you hear Blondie? Come on, Blondie. Coming up. Oh, you may have a little Blondie in this video. Subscribe. Thumbs up for Blondie. No, you want to get down now? Blondie's not talking to me because I forgot to let her back in. And it's raining. Well, it's not raining bad outside. You know when cats do that thing where they don't know whether they want to go in or they want to go out, but they stand at the door? So I hooshed her out and I said, come back in 5 minutes. I didn't come back in 5 minutes. So she's after me outside in the wind, in the blustery weather for 10 minutes. And she's not talking to me now because she's like, you never let me back in. Anyway, such as cats. Cat people can relate. Anyway, cheeky thumbs up. And for my regular viewers, there is a Thursday video. Do not worry, this is just an extra one this week.